grab an axe and join the shield wall. We've got an England to conquer. This is Sons of Valhalla, a story of gods, warriors, revenge, and wanton destruction. You'll build and fortify a base, gather a warband, and put a country to the sword in your quest to find your wife, who always happens to be in another castle. I had a blast with this game, so without further ado, let's take a look and see what it's got to offer. Right, overview time, and then I'll dive into the nitty-gritty. Sons of Valhalla is the creation of Pixel Chest, a teeny tiny little dev which consists of two brothers that share a penchant for pixel art and Norse stories. Now, pixel graphics aren't usually my go-to, but these really struck me. The world is stunning. It feels alive and dynamic. There's day and night cycles, destruction effects, and the lighting and effects are excellent. There's also dogs, and yes, you can pet them. Vikings were ruthless and violent, but they weren't heartless. It's published by Hooded Horse, who've been on a hot streak lately, and it ties action and strategy together with a sprinkling of roguelite elements. The game revolves around base building, resource management, and forming a warband. You'll then take that warband and sack and pillage to your heart's content, taking new areas and towns to reinforce your territory. If you've played Kingdom 2 Crowns or New Lands, it feels like that, though much more combat focused, which I did enjoy. The golden rule is get troops and fight. There's some basic commands you can offer your units, which were a bit fiddly at first, but once I got the hang of it and changed a few key bindings, it became second nature. There were a few cases of odd soldiers breaking formation to cash in an early bird ticket to Valhalla, but most units followed their orders well. You can command your shield maidens or foot soldiers to form a shield wall to deflect enemy arrows while your archers and catapults fire from behind. If the enemy gets too close, the front soldier will break formation and push the enemy back, which is a really nice touch. Then, when the time is right, you can break ranks and rush down the enemy with your berserkers. As I said, it was fiddly at first, but once it clicked and I was quote-unquote doing it right, it became very satisfying. There's some neat things you can do, like coat the ground in front of your shield wall with tar and then set it alight, essentially creating a death trap inferno which no Englishman will be able to get out of. So the strategy side is good. Not a huge amount of options at your disposal, but what you've got works, and it works well. But again, this isn't like Kingdom. You're not just watching on the back line. You're the hero. You're Thorald Olafsson. You're leading by example and getting stuck into the fray. Whether you're holding the line with the archers and turning the enemy into pincushions, or showing your berserkers how it's done by charging deep into enemy lines, you will personally control the flow of battle. This is the aspect that makes a potentially slow game feel exciting. The combat is quick and fluid, though it can quickly take a turn for the worse. I got humbled many times in the early game, though Odin was always too happy to offer me a second chance, sending me back to fulfill my mission. All he asked was that a rune be sacrificed in his honor. What's a rune, you're asking? And what use has the Allfather got for them? Well, I'm glad you asked. Runes are what give the game a bit of variety. They'll drop from enemies or be rewarded after capturing towns, and you slot them neatly onto your belt. They'll upgrade various aspects of your character, town, and soldiers, and can enable certain styles of play. One I used very liberally turned my arrow into a piercing superbolt, meaning I could cozy up behind the shield wall and whittle down enemy troops with my pocket-sized WMD. So this is the roguelite flavor to spice things up. By combining different upgrades, you can supercharge your catapults or make your foot soldiers beefier and better. There's some interesting combos with the potential for new playstyles to be opened up at future updates. So that's the combat and character power side covered, and that's about half the game. While you may be an accomplished warrior, you won't get far if your home's not in order. Managing your bases in Sons of Valhalla is important. It's the backbone of your conquest. Now, it's not massively in depth, but your choices do matter. You have to set up places to train and upgrade your troops while balancing those out with resource generating buildings. Your fishing huts and lumber yards. On your conquest, you'll get silver to upgrade your buildings and your central fixture, the mead hall. Improving this gives more building slots, a greater troop allowance, and lets you make bigger pushes into enemy territory. That's where this really deviates from the formula of the Kingdom series. The offensive aspect outweighs the defensive one. You want to reach the end of the map, and to get there you have to pillage, burn and conquer everything in your path. Towns can be put to the sword, and from the ashes you can construct your own settlements. You'll also come across outposts which provide resources and powerful mercenaries. It's a slow process at first, as hitting a stone wall with a sword is obviously not very effective, but as your settlement advances you can bring catapults and battering rams to the party. You'll be busting through castles as though they were paper mache. And it's fun, really, it is. But it raises one issue. See, this whole premise of going on the offensive sets Sons of Valhalla apart from the pack. However, the game's recurring mode, the Horde mode, doesn't feature that gameplay. It's just base defense, which is only one side of the coin of this game. I feel like it's missing a crucial mode, some sort of random skirmish that incorporates the sieging and spreading out, as that's where I feel the game's replayability would come from. The big thing to get stuck into is the campaign, and it is very enjoyable. It sets the stage quickly. You as Thorold will romp around Britain storming enemy castles looking for your abducted wife. Though, and much like Super Mario, you'll find the princess has been carted away elsewhere once you reach the final level. In this case, Thorold usually disembowels his enemy before moving on. I don't think Mario ever did that. Each region has its own unique enemies and distinctive feel, and ends in a boss fight. These all have a lot of personality attached, though once you get to grips with the combat, they do become predictable and pretty easy. Saying that though, the final boss was a step in a very different direction and felt a lot more reactive and interesting. But I'm not gonna show you that footage because, you know, spoilers. The story and voice acting was okay.
Those who stay behind end up as dog food.
Some characters definitely stood out more than others. The writing and general presentation of the narrative felt a bit hammed up. It gave me that same feeling as if I were to watch an 80s sword and sorcery romp. It's not winning any awards, but it's fun and macho and over the top.
My dearest, please call me Sir William.
The campaign will keep you going for several hours. 8 to 12 I'd say is a realistic expectation. It's well paced throughout, aside from a deviation in the middle where the game suddenly becomes a stealth sim. I wasn't a fan of this. I mean, variety is good and all, but it lasted a little bit too long and just derailed the momentum. Once the campaign is done and dusted, you've got a few choices of where to go next. You can replay it at a higher difficulty, and with the runes I mentioned earlier, you will get a slightly different experience, but not massively so. Alternatively, you've got the Horde mode. I can see this giving a few more hours of playtime, but as I mentioned before, this skips out on the whole sieging enemy towns angle, which I found to be the game's standout feature. For me, it's missing one more game mode. Something that combines the map setup of the campaign with the endless allure of the Horde mode. Though, the campaign did quite plainly say that there will be more to the story, so I have hopes that this might be an area revisited in the future. Because that to me is a glaring issue with the game. The campaign is really fun, and there's all the building blocks to make something that I'd be eager to come back to again and again, but right now I just don't have the means to. It's a very solid title, and if you've got a spark for the Kingdom series or just like a bit of Viking violence, I don't think you'll be disappointed. I just think it's missing one layer, and that's what's preventing it being a game I'd wholeheartedly recommend. Though, if you're just looking for something you can blast through and move on from, then ignore me, I guess, and just crack on. It does have a lot going for it. The pixel art is fantastic, the core gameplay loops are engaging, and the combat and army management are really solid. You will feel epic when you break out of your shield wall in the middle of combat and lay into your enemies alongside your berserkers. I was having a great time from beginning to end, apart from the stealth bit. It's just that the end point came too soon. Again, it's still a very solid dozen hours or so easily, but a good endless mode could take that dozen hours and just increase it exponentially. It's also releasing straight to 1.0, so no early access period to be wary of. The game was stable and very polished, and aside from my earlier skirmish mode gripe, it felt very complete. Again, you can pet the dogs, pretty damn crucial if you ask me. So there we have it. This has been Sons of Valhalla from Pixel Chest and Hooded Horse. A really entertaining adventure, if a little on the short side. I'll drop a Steam link in the video description, and if you've any questions, hit me up in the comments and I will get back to you on them. And be sure to like and subscribe for more game previews and first impressions in your life. And if you want to support the channel further, we've started up a Patreon link. You don't have to give me money, just give it a follow for some updates. There's a lot of stuff on there. Anywho, thank you for watching, you've been great, and I will catch you next time.